What's up, everyone? Andy from wagertalk.com. We're going to break down fight by fight. UFC Fight Night. Sandhagen versus Font had a really nice night betting wise. We hit our one official play at wagertalk.com for a 3%er. Kind of a no sweater. We had Bone Theme, who I think pretty much everybody had. And then my favorite play, I even told you about on last week's video, was Kopylov, devastating head kick. So seeing UFC really, really well. That's two really nice, profitable weekends in a row. So I will warn everybody, this card I think is pretty tough. There are a lot of traps and there are a lot of fights I like. I'm struggling to find a lot of fights that I love, a lot of bets that I love. So we're going to tread a little bit light. I don't think this is going to be a huge betting card for me. I love just having one official play and cashing that 3% last night. I feel like this card is probably going to be similar. So we're going to get into that. Official plays are at wagertalk.com. By the time you're watching this, I will probably have my play up. So let's get right into it here. So the first fight we're going to start with is Ode Osbourne versus Asu Almabaev. And I think it's interesting here that Almabaev is a favorite making his UFC debut against a veteran like Ode Osbourne. I kind of get it. Listen, Osbourne just not really that impressive in the UFC. He's 12-5, but we look at his record here. Okay, split decision against Charles Johnson. That's not a good look. I'm not high on Charles Johnson at all. Loses to Tyson Nam when he tries a ridiculous jumping flying knee that Nam catches him on. And then, Adashev, fine, gets the win. CJ Vergara, fine, gets the win. But this guy's not great in the UFC. I'm just not sure what he does that is so great. I can't point to anything Ode Osbourne and have that really big, like, oh, he's great on the feet or he's great on the ground. I don't know what he does that is that impressive. So he's fighting Almabaev, who, it's this kind of one of those things where, yeah, he's 17-2, but let's be honest, not a lot of great competition over in Brave CF. I think he fights a lot like Ode Osbourne. He has finishes on his record, but not against great opponents. And then, he had that split decision win against Zach Makovsky. Makovsky fought in Bellator and in the UFC, but that was in the mid 2010s. Makovsky's 40 now. He's lost 3 out of 4. He almost beat Almabaev. So I think this fight is really, really close. I don't know where this fight is going to take place. I'm assuming mostly on the feet, but there's no way I'm picking a winner in this one. I guess the value is in the dog, just because I'm not really sure why anyone in this fight would be a minus 150, which is the odds that I see right now. I will say this. I think this fight goes the distance. If you play the to start round 2 parlays like I do, this is a must have in your arsenal here to start round 2. Wouldn't surprise me if this goes the distance because I'm not really sure either of these guys are going to finish each other. I think they mirror each other in a lot of different ways. So no way I'm betting on a side, but total, yeah, overs in this one for sure. Up next, Jake Hadley and Cody Durden. So I'm looking at the live odds. Hadley's around your minus 170, minus 175. I get it. I get why Hadley is a favorite here. I think the odds are probably about accurate. So if I'm looking at betting wise, I don't know if there's value on it. I do like Hadley to win this one. I think he's just going to be more active in the striking department. Kicks, punches are pretty quick. His ground game is pretty good. He's got that submission win over Candelario, which was a really, really nice win there. So, we look at him and, his losses to Alan Nascimento, who I'm high on. I like Nascimento's skill set. He gets that really nice triangle against Candelario and then does what he's supposed to do, which is beat Malcolm Gordon. And he's going up against Cody Durden. I just think Durden's going to try and backpack Hadley, try and make it a pure wrestling match. He may have success because I do think outside of Nascimento, this is probably Hadley's toughest opponent. I'm just not sure if Durden's going to have the activity. Again, Charles Johnson, not that high on. Carlos Mota, not that high on. JB Bays, no way, loses to Makayev. So I think the advantage is going to be by Hadley, and it's going to be on the feet, just kind of with more volume and a little bit more speed. I got to tell you, I like the overs in this one. If you're doing a start round 2 parlay, these first 2 fights, the Almabaev and Hadley fights, absolutely these are going to start round 2, I believe. So I like Hadley to win. I'm not sure if minus 170 is the best price in the world. I could see a lot of people putting this in parlays. And again, this falls in the category of this is a fight that I like. I'm not really sure if I love it. I do love it to start round two. Like I like the Almabaev and Osbourne fight to start round two. But if we're looking at just on the odds and who do you expect to win, like Hadley. But man, I just do not love this price. So that's Hadley and Durden. Up next, Jeremiah Wells and Carlston Harris. So Jeremiah Wells is minus 150. Harris is plus 140. I like Jeremiah Wells in this one. Although I got to tell you, neither of these guys have fought great competition. Wells is 4-0 in the UFC. Harris is on a 5-1 run. But it's kind of like, okay, Jeremiah Wells beat Selmsberger. We saw last night. Selmsberger, not that great. You see Carlston Harris just beat Jared Gooden, not Jared Gordon, Jared Gooden, who got booted from the UFC once before. He's not UFC caliber. So when I look at these two, I think Wells has the pretty good advantage on the feet, just with his speed and his power. I don't like Carlston Harris's stance. I think he lunges into his punches way too much. They're telegraphed. Some of them are so slow that he's gotten away with it against some of the guys that he has fought. But I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to. It's not going to work against Jeremiah Wells, in my opinion. So in that first round against Jared Gooden, I mean, he was really lunging into those punches, and you could see him coming a mile away. Just Jared Gooden just can't do much about it. He fought Shafka. He lost to Rakhmonov. No shame in that one. So, but when I watch Jeremiah Wells against Selmsberger, I just really like the speed. I like the power. And, Carlston Harris used the grappling wrestling to kind of hold Gooden down. Didn't do a whole lot with it. We saw Wells use it against Selmsberger, and he was pretty active. And actually, Selmsberger was active off of his back. So I just think Wells is a bit better everywhere, especially in the striking department. Both guys wrestled and grappled in their last fight. I don't know if we see that in this one. My guess is probably Harris doesn't like what's going on in the feet and then tries to implement a little bit of the wrestling. If it fails, then I think that's going to be demoralizing, and Wells starts to pull ahead as it goes there. And if anyone's going to finish this one, it's going to be Wells by KO. I just don't see the power from Harris overwhelming Wells in this one. So I'll take Jeremiah Wells minus 150. I don't think it's going to make my card as an official play, but that's what I like in that one. Kyler Phillips versus Raoni Barcelos. Phillips is minus 175. Barcelos plus 150. I think this price is right. Barcelos, I just don't think he has it anymore. He's 36 years old. Eye test, you can see him slowing down. 1-3 in his last four, with his win being against Trevin Jones, who's on an 0-4 skid. And his last fight, he got KO'd in the first round by Nurmagomedov. And listen, no shame in that one. Okay, that's he got clocked. But here's the thing: that was his first KO, and it was brutal. He got caught on a kind of a half left hook check. His head bounced really, really hard off of the mat. And even before that, like Nurmagomedov was able to land kicks and strikes. And I think Phillips is going to kind of do the same thing. I don't think Phillips has that power, but he does have the speed. You look at Phillips, and I think this just comes down to the speed, and he's got the speed. I don't necessarily think he's got the cardio, but I'm just looking at Barcelos as a guy who's really, really on the decline. I think Phillips just has to stay out of the way of the body and head kicks of Barcelos. Those are still there. I think Barcelos is going to come out trying to land body kicks, establish the distance, try and do damage to Phillips' legs. But I don't think it's going to matter in this one. I think Phillips kind of weathers the storm. And Barcelos is just going to have those moments where he just kind of looks old and slow, and that's where Phillips is going to take advantage. Do I like the minus 175 price? Absolutely not. I think it's probably priced correctly, but again, if we're looking at value, I'm not sure that's a valuable bet at minus 175. So lean Phillips in this one, as I just don't think Barcelos has it anymore. If you're looking at a live bet, I don't know. Look at the gas tank of both, because if this gets out of the first round, I think there's a chance both of them could slow down a little bit. But I'm just fading the older fighter Barcelos, who just doesn't seem to have that high ceiling anymore. Billy Quarantillo, Damon Jackson, Billy Q's minus 175. A lot of minus 175s in this card. I maybe a little bit of an overreaction here on Damon Jackson, who got finished by Dan Ige. Ige looked fantastic from start to finish, and Billy Q's really good. But listen, Billy Q on his best day is not good. Is not as good as what Dan Ige looked like in his last fight against Damon Jackson. So, before that fight, Damon Jackson was 5-1 in the UFC. His loss was to Topuria. And one thing about this fight, it's going to be fun. We know Billy Q's fights are going to be really, really fun. Um, so, I'm looking at Billy Q and listen, lost to Barboza. He gets the win against Alexander Hernandez. We lost against Shane Burgos, wins against Gabriel Benitez, and then Gavin Tucker, who we'll certainly talk about a little bit later. So, Billy Q, I think might be just a little bit overrated here. Look at his record, and his record kind of speaks for himself. It's the Bill Parcells thing. You are what your record says you are. So you look at Damon Jackson, he smokes Pat Sabatini, and he wins against Daniel Argueta. And I think that's kind of interesting that Damon Jackson's last two wins have been against, kind of those wrestlers and takedown guys. But against, Dan Ige, the striker, it was just, it wasn't even close. So I think it's going to be a fun, fast fight. I think there's going to be a lot of fireworks. I give the slight edge to Billy Q, speed and cardio. I will say this: if the fight gets to round 3, and you think it's 1-1, definitely I'm jumping on Billy Q because I think Billy Q wins round 3 as long as he doesn't have enough damage. So I'm not excited about laying -175 on Billy Q against Jackson here. As I said, I think Jackson's a little bit. It's a little bit of overreaction here from Jackson's last fight. So lean Billy Q. I'm certainly not going to play -175. I kind of like this one to start round 2. I think these guys are active enough and tough enough. I don't think Jackson's going to get the finish like he did against Sabatini. I mean, that was really a one crazy shot. So I think this goes kind of deep into the fight here. Slight lean on Billy Q. I'm certainly not betting it. Damon Jackson is absolutely a live dog in this one. So if you like Damon Jackson, if you're a Damon Jackson fan, you think this is a sneaky spot, absolutely fire away on it because you're getting a great price. Ignacio Baamonde versus Ludovit Klein. We got Baamonde around -200. I really like what I've seen from Baamonde in his last 2 fights, actually. His last one against Trey Ogden. He's only 25 years old, so he's maturing with each fight. He's getting a little bit more muscle. His man body is really starting to show. I loved what he did with his reach, with his jabs and his kicks against Ogden. Ogden was on a 4-1 run coming into that fight, so it wasn't like Baamonde's, beat a can. He controlled the space. He controlled the pace. He didn't bloody up Ogden. It wasn't like a, real ass kicking where Ogden was just, destroyed and was wearing a bunch of damage, but it was just a really good technical performance. His cardio was excellent. And then if we're looking at Baamonde, I went back and watched that fight against Zhu Rong. He looked really good. Rong was really pushing forward and kind of reminded me a little bit of what Klein may look like because Baamonde is going to be taller. He's going to have the reach advantage. And Rong was really trying to jump inside and land some really big shots. And Baamonde was able to stay out of the danger zone and, use his length. And I think that's what he's going to do against Klein. Klein is he's a decent striker, but he's got to get in close here against the much taller. Look at 6'3" versus 5'7". So Klein's going to have a really, really tough battle here. We did see Klein against Jai Herbert get a takedown in the first. He couldn't do a whole lot with it. And if he does try and go for those takedowns, Baamonde is no slouch in the submission department. So Klein is going to have to be, really careful. And when Klein got the takedown on Herbert, Herbert was the one that did damage. Caught him with a nice up kick. Cut him up pretty good. Of course, Herbert gets a point taken away on a terrible, terrible call. Klein milks it. Says he gets hit in the groin on replays. He gets hit in the hip. And of course, Michael Bisping arguing that it wasn't a low blow with one of the announcers has the all-time comment where he says, that's not a low blow. I don't pee for my hip. So I like Baamonde in this -200, probably a parlay piece here. And I got to tell you, I don't mind this one. If you want to lower the price, maybe take this one by decision. Baamonde, just wait until the props come up. Take Baamonde by decision. I didn't think he didn't show any. He wasn't close to finishing Trey Ogden, I guess. And Klein is, really tough, and he's a veteran, and Klein, I don't think, is going to put himself in harm's way. There's always the chance of submission from Baamonde if Klein does try and close the clinch. So I would try and use this with another parlay piece, whether it's in UFC or another sport. I've been using a lot of a Canadian Football League money lines, so I think I might be looking that way. So I do like Baamonde's. It's one fight that I'm pretty close to saying I love. So the -200s, a little bit of a bummer. I wish it was a better price, but they're going to make you pay for it, and I think it might be worth it. So moving on to a fight that I want absolutely nothing to do with, Tanner Boser and Aleksa Camur. Both these guys have absolutely no defense on the feet. I expect it to be sloppy. It's going to be weirdly exciting, I think, kind of, it might kind of look like a backyard brawl with not a lot of technical skills here. So Tanner Boser moved to light heavyweight last week, promptly gets knocked out. So that's now a 1-4 run from the UFC. He cannot block punches. He cannot stop takedowns at the most important times. He just seems to do exactly enough what it takes to lose. Camur, not much better. He's lost his last 2 fights. He's got decent power. He's low volume, sloppy movement. I think this might be a loser leaves the UFC type of fight. Uh, the only way you can bet this is take the dog. There's no way I'm laying -180 on Tanner Boser. No shot. But listen, do not bet this fight. Just save your money. There's value anywhere else in any other sport or UFC. There's better places to put your money than on Tanner Boser and Camur. So this is an absolute pass for me. Gavin Tucker and Diego Lopes. This is a tough one. Diego Lopes, man, put on an absolutely incredible performance when he made his debut just a couple months ago against Evloev, and almost submitted Evloev several times, was a complete live dog. If you were like me and you bet on Evloev, you were just like, your heart was pounding. And you're like, where did they find this guy? This guy should be in the UFC and maybe ranked. But the problem here is we just haven't seen Gavin Tucker in forever, and you don't know what he's doing. So he's 13-2. He's got a good record. But, his last fight we see him, he loses to Danny Ige brutally. And that was 2021. We're looking at 2.5 years off. I know he was trying to fight Pat Sabatini. Those fights got canceled. And so here he is with 2.5 years off. I don't like the rust. I love that Lopes fought just the last couple months against a beast in Evloev. So I lean towards Lopes. It's -130. This may be one of those where Lopes just shows that his UFC debut was absolutely no fluke, and he deserves to be in the UFC, and he starts ripping off wins against some of these lesser talented guys. I just don't know what we're going to get from Gavin Tucker. He's 37 years old. We haven't seen him in forever, and I don't know what he's going to bring to the table here. I think it's kind of a layoff situation here, although it could absolutely be where Lopes looks great, Tucker looks slow and rusty, and at the end of the fight, when Lopes is getting his hand raised, you're going, "Why didn't I bet on it? That was a gift." At -130, I'm cautious. I'm a little bit of a cautious bettor. So unfortunately, I'm gonna pass on this one. I do like Lopes to win, but I just don't trust that layoff. I don't know what Gavin Tucker has been up to, and I just don't know how he's going to look inside the ring. So, Dustin, Jacoby, and Kennedy Nzechukwu, and I really like Kennedy in this one. I like the progression that he's been on. I would go with him on this fight. I think the price at -150, I actually think is a little bit too low. I think I think it should be closer to the -175. I mean, we look at Kennedy, so he loses to Down Jung, loses a close split to Nikolai Negamorano, and then Carl Robertson, okay, gets a really nice finish. Kudalaba gets a nice finish. And Devin Clark, he gets a nice finish where he weathers the early storm from Clark. Clark gasses himself. And what I like about Kennedy is you're just seeing more weapons from him, and you're seeing him getting tougher. I mean, when they get up against the clinch, he has this wicked guard. It's very Chris Curtis-esque, where he gets up at the fence and he covers himself, and these guys will unload on him, and it looks like, oh man, Kennedy's taking a bunch of damage, and none of them are breaking through the guard and hitting him in the face. So you see 3 straight finishes from Kennedy. And here's the thing. Listen, Jacoby is a boxer. We know that. I've not liked what I've seen from him in the last two fights. So he loses that really close one to Roundtree. I thought Jacoby kind of pulled it out, but I think when we're looking at Jacoby, I think he's just got limited weapons. He's a boxer, and if he doesn't, if he doesn't really, piece you up and land the big time shot. I mean, look at this. He has, he wins against Down Jung and then, Darren Stewart, but, loses decision against Azamat, which Azamat did a really, really good job. And Jacoby had a long reach advantage against Azamat. He ain't going to have that reach advantage. So Azamat was able to get through to Jacoby, do a bunch of damage. And I thought Jacoby looked a little bit slow. So I'm looking, and that wasn't even that long ago. I mean, what is that, April? So I'm supposed to think that, Jacoby is all of a sudden going to be a lot faster in this fight. I just don't see it. I like how Kennedy is kind of, is kind of on the up, and Jacoby is a little bit on the down here. I think Kennedy uses a lot of different weapons. I love those elbows that he has in the clinch. He's shown submission game. And I just think, look at Jacoby, who's 35 years old, and he's never been the fastest guy on the planet. And at this level, when you lose kind of half a step, you end up looking really, really slow. So I mentioned, the last fight where Jacoby had the reach advantage. Look at this, 83-inch reach for Kennedy and 76-inch reach for Jacoby. Kennedy's going to be a little bit taller. So this one, I think, is probably going to be my favorite pick. I don't love it nearly as much as I loved Kopylov last week, but I really like Kennedy. I think he gets it done against Dustin Jacoby. I'm not really seeing the upside on Jacoby, and I'm just seeing Kennedy getting better each of his last three fights. So Tatiana Suarez and Jéssica Andrade. A lot going on in this one. First off, you got Tatiana Suarez, who, returns from all the injuries. She fought De La Rosa in her last fight. Wasn't completely dominating, but I think that's kind of what we expected. She needed one fight to knock off the ring rust. She does get the finish, but it wasn't like the old Tatiana Suarez, before all the injuries. So she loves to maul people, take them down, loves the ground and pound, loves the submission game. So we know that's what she's going to do. And so we got Andrade. We have an OnlyFans theory here. So we're looking, we fade these female fighters who look like they're kind of getting towards the end of their career. So they start in OnlyFans, and that's what Jéssica Andrade is doing. She just has the feel of a fighter that is taking every single fight she possibly can because she knows her time is limited. She's almost 32 years old. That being said, she is a little bit younger than Suarez, but listen, Andrade, 24-11. So look at all those fights and all that damage and wear and tear that body has taken. And Tatiana Suarez, only 9-0. So, Tatiana Suarez, here's the big problem. Minus 450. Yikes. I have a lot of cautionary. I have a lot of things to be careful about in this fight. So we look at Andrade. Okay, yes. Has she lost 2 in a row? Absolutely. She fought Jan, who was the bigger and more powerful striker, gets KO'd in the first. Erin Blanchfield, no shame in losing that one. Lauren Murphy, okay, she gets the win against Lauren Murphy, but I wouldn't really brag about that. But, this is going to be her 4th fight already in 2023. We talked about Andrade doing, taking as many fights as she possibly can. But, it was about a year ago she beats, or a year and a few months, she beats Amanda Lemos in round 1. So I think she's got a little bit left in the gas tank. And here's the thing. If Suarez fights exactly how she fought last fight against De La Rosa, I think she might be in trouble. I think Andrade is tough enough and decent enough on the ground that she can either kind of stop some of the takedowns or at least reverse a couple of them, because I just didn't think Suarez's real aggression and speed was really, really there. The other thing I'm worried about is this is everyone's parlay piece. Every person, every casual bettor, this is going to be the parlay piece of the card. Like, it's by far the biggest favorite. You're like, okay, Andrade just lost 2 in a row. Suarez undefeated. That just scares me. For that reason alone, I think you should stay away from it, because this just feels like the type of fight where Suarez, little slow, little bit rusty. Andrade senses, oh, if I win this one, I maybe get a few more fights in UFC. And then all of a sudden it's a split decision, and there's Jéssica Andrade, and the books just made a ton of money because everyone's parlay is completely busted. So I used to be, I mean, these big time parlays years ago were easy money. I mean, they hit all the time. Not anymore, man. Sometimes these obvious parlay pieces can blow up in our face. So I'm being much more careful with some of these big time, these big time favorites, especially in women's MMA. So I'm staying away from this one. I don't have an opinion on the total, and I honestly think this is just much more closer to maybe Suarez being maybe minus 180 or something. There's no shot I'm laying minus 450 from what I saw from Suarez last time. I could look like a dope. Maybe Suarez comes out, mauls Andrade, gets an early finish. But, man, that is a hefty, hefty price to be paying on Suarez, who I just didn't think looked that amazing against Taylor Rosa. And finally, Cory Sandhagen versus Rob Font. Nice that we're getting this main event. We had we had a situation where fighters dropped out. So so last fight for Rob Font, his boxing looked great against Yanez. Much needed win. He had dropped 2 straight. Didn't look great in the process. Had to take a year off because he took so much damage to the face in one of his fights. So Font gets the early finish, sick punch in round 1. His boxing looked great. Here's the honest truth. He was getting busted up by Yanez up until that point. He had a huge black eye welt underneath one of his eyes. He already had a lot of damage before he got to finish, and that was early in round 1. Well, not early, but a little bit later in round 1. So if that fight goes longer, goes into round 3, Rob Font's face is a mess. So for Yanez, that was by far the biggest step up in competition, and he just couldn't hang with Rob in the boxing department. Problem for Rob Font is Cory Sandhagen will probably have no problem dealing with Rob Font's boxing. So Sandhagen is not going to absorb the shots that Yanez does. I think he can land kind of whatever he wants. I think this may be a showcase fight for Sandhagen where he shows off his kicks that Font isn't going to be ready for. He gets a couple takedowns like he showed against Vera. And then he shows that he can split the guard of Rob Font on the feet, which pretty much any really good striker can do. Font needs Sandhagen just stand there and box, and so Font can maybe land the home run shot like he did against Yanez, and that's just not Sandhagen's game. He's not going to stand there and let that happen. He's too well-rounded. He's got way too many weapons. Price right now is Sandhagen minus 265. I think that sounds about right. Kind of surprised that it's not closer to minus 300 maybe over the course of the week. It moves up. I think this is going to be way too much for Rob Font. So, again, the damage that he was taking against Yanez before he gets the finish. I mean, after he got the finish, his corner has to come over and work on his eye and work on his cheek and everything. So I think Font is just he just absorbs too much damage. He's like, I'll try and eat a couple so I can get in and land the big one. And that's just a bad idea against Sandhagen. So wouldn't surprise me if this fight ended up on the ground more than once from Sandhagen, and Sandhagen's landing the top control. And then, the kicks, I think, does damage to Font as well. So if Font's going to win, I think it's got to be early because the longer this fight goes, Sandhagen pulls away. But I don't even think Font is going to do well right off the bat. So give me Sandhagen in this one. Minus 265. I guess you put it in a parlay. We talked about what was the other fight? Yeah, Hadley. Maybe we talked about Baamonde. I could see that one. Sandhagen and Baamonde. That sounds like a pretty decent parlay. But again, this card, pretty difficult. I would advise everybody to just tread a little bit lightly on this card. I think there are a lot of traps and there could be a lot of surprises. So that's your fight breakdown. All of the plays can be found on wagertalk.com. My official play will be up soon. My guess is probably Monday morning. I will have an official UFC play for this card coming off of 2 straight winning events in a row. We've also all of our other sports. We're gearing up for football season and our legendary 5% NFL props. We went 21-9 in our 5% best bets in the NFL. So looking forward to that. Check us out on wagertalk.com. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Let's have another profitable UFC card. Good luck on all your bets, and we'll see everyone later.